5, 4, 3, 2, 1. CTS Podcast, episode 40.
Episode 40. This episode is sponsored by Fauci's leaked emails.
Not an actual sponsor.
We got paid to
Dr.
talk about
Fauci,
that.
if you want to sponsor this podcast, go for it.
Okay, so that's what we'll talk about then. Fauci has had a rough week. He had 10,000 emails leaked, something like that. And I don't even think that's hyperbole. It might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but it was like 10,000.
10,000 emails isn't that crazy.
That's a lot.
Yeah, but like if someone leaks just like your whole inbox, 10,000 isn't too bad. I think I have 10,000 emails in my inbox.
Yeah. Excuse me. So, of these emails, there's only like a dozen people are picking out. But the biggest one I saw a lot of coverage on was there's a company that funded a lot of the research that happened at the Wuhan lab of virology. And this company sent an email to Fauci thanking him for taking the stance that the virus was procured from animal to human transmission, a species jump. And this email just thanked him for his public stance on that, which is not even that bad of an email really, but it is weird. That's a weird thing to do, to send an email to someone. That's like, I'm trying to think of a good example of what that would be like. Just like a company thanking you for doing this.
It's like if
it's like
Nixon
a nod.
thanked Fox News for their stance on Watergate.
Yeah, that's a good example. It's weird.
Maybe not quite. That's probably a bad example, to be honest.
But, I mean, the company was giving Fauci a nod. Take it any way you want.
Pretty odd. Was it also in Fauci's emails that it revealed, like, he had kind of fudged the numbers on how much had been donated to the virology lab?
I've heard stuff about that, too. I've only watched CNN videos on it, so.
It is, because I think it was something like Fauci said it was like 500,000 and it was actually like closer to 800,000 that had been donated, which is like, okay, like, did he get the numbers wrong? But also, like, you've got to know how much has been donated to that lab if you're going to talk about it. For all the, like, oh, like, you've got to be concrete on facts and everything that is, like, talked about to kind of fudge the numbers a little bit low on how much, like, how many U.S. taxpayer dollars have gone to fund the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Seems a little weird to me.
Yeah, I mean that, and he has come out and said that he wants to look into the virus's origins and blah blah blah, but he took a very, very strong stance at the beginning of the pandemic, saying that it was essentially a naturally born disease. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but he was very, very specific that it didn't originate in the lab, or that he was highly confident that it didn't. And I think that it's becoming a little bit more accepted that it definitely did originate in the lab. I
don't get how it just switches like that, because that to me says that they didn't know one way or the other.
No, they absolutely didn't.
So it's like, how can you come out and say we're highly confident that it didn't originate from the lab, and we're very confident that it came from, like, it jumped from bats to humans? Like, just say we don't know right now, and like right now we're worrying about like dealing with the pandemic. Like, if you say that, totally fine. But when you come out and say there's no way it originated from the lab, and if you say that, you're like racist.
Yeah, it's sketch. It's just sketch.
Yeah, and so now, and I get, like, you get more information, but if you didn't know because there was a lack of information, then don't say one way or another.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. If it comes out that the virus originated in that lab, there's going to be international fallout.
Yeah. It's going to be...
Don't you think?
Oh, for sure. But do you think China lets people figure out that the virus came from that lab?
I think they could figure it out without China.
How, though?
I have no idea.
Because...
But, I mean, you have the biggest intelligence agencies in the world working on it. If you have the biggest intelligence agencies in the world working on it, something's going to come out one way or the other. But it certainly doesn't help when you have the leaders in the NIH saying, we are very confident. Or at the beginning of the pandemic, they said that they received weird emails thanking them for their position. And then they've continued on with that position until the CIA, literally the CIA and the FBI and the NSA or whoever it was came out and said, we're confident that it came from the Wuhan lab. So now you have the NIH taking a position that is in almost direct refutation to what the security agencies are saying. And the security agencies
have they come out and said they think it came from the lab?
The CIA has.
Really? Yeah. That's a weird one because it's like, I just think...
I should say I believe it was the head of the CIA did.
I know the former head of the CDC said that he thinks it originated from the lab. But I just think they don't have enough information yet either way. So why are we coming out with such a strong stance? Like, in either direction, it seems like a poor way to go about things.
But it does make it weirder that this company who funded the lab came out and said, "Thank you for your position," before they knew, before the CIA, the NSA, or whoever it was came out and said, "We think it originated in the lab." They thanked him for taking that stance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of weird. That's like saying thank you for something that didn't happen, right? It's like, thank you for holding that door open, but they didn't no one held the door for you. It's just weird. That's a weird thing.
Definitely. One sec. I'm going to check and make sure we're recording video.
That would be...
I'm freaking out.
That would be tough. No, but going on, it just seems like there was criticism at the very beginning from, these right-wing, almost like conspiracy theorists, really, that were saying it came from the lab. And I touched on this in an earlier podcast, but they came out very strongly against that position and against that theory, and now that theory it's gaining traction. So they shouldn't have come out so hard against it, because now you're just adding fuel to the fire. It just looks suspect.
Are they conspiracy theorists if they're right?
That's the thing, right? I don't think so. I don't think they're conspiracy theorists now. They have heads of these government agencies agreeing with them.
And it's like, if these people were right about it, it couldn't have been just a guess. Like, there was information that it originated there that was more than just like wild speculation. I don't know why. Yeah, it's kind of like the mask thing from the start of the pandemic. Like,
yeah,
why come out with that position and like either lie or take a stance that you shouldn't have based on like not having any information?
Well, and the thing about the people that originally said that it originated in the lab, these are the same people that think that vaccines are an elitist way.
Not all of them, though, right?
A lot of them. I think
but
a lot of those same people at the very beginning of the pandemic that said that this was a tool. I mean, I think those same people that were saying it originated in the lab are the same people that are saying China used it as a weapon.
But there's been some pretty credible people from the very start. There's crazy people saying crazy stuff the whole time, but I'm not talking about those people as much. I'm talking about like the former director of the CDC got called racist earlier in the pandemic because he said it looks to me like it originated from the lab. So that to me is a weird position to take if now you're going to have to double back on that and say, well, I know we said we were for sure it didn't originate from a lab, but we were wrong. We were just saying that because we were worried about whatever. Actually, it did originate from the lab in Wuhan.
Do you think it's weird the kind of role Fauci's taken on, and before, during, and after the pandemic?
It's an oddly like celebrity role.
Yeah.
For like the head of a government agency. Like if the director of the FBI was like a celebrity, like was on Jimmy Kimmel, and like you'd be like, what the heck? That's kind of bizarre. Why is that happening? The CDC, or not the CDC, but like he's a celebrity.
Fauci's writing a book.
Yeah, they all do that. But it just seems like he's been more in the spotlight than, to me, it seems like he should have, based on, I mean, what? The mask thing was just a glaring mistake to say, yeah, masks aren't required. Like, masks don't help. They might actually hurt. And then come out like a month later and say, actually, we lied about that because we were worried we wouldn't have enough masks. So you should have been wearing masks that entire time. I just don't like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's really weird. What the WHO has done is, I think it's illegal, but I guess that's my opinion. And Biden has reinstated funding to the WHO, which is it's just absolutely bizarre. I mean, it's just embarrassing. The WHO has publicly stated that, we shouldn't, all of this stuff about the virus in China and that China shouldn't take accountability, blah, blah, blah. It's nonsense. It's just, I think the WHO is a joke of an organization. It's like, it's more incompetent than the UN, right? It's just completely useless. They had little to no role in dictating what happened during the pandemic. And they've been wrong about so many things during and throughout the entire course of the pandemic. I think it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's kind of a joke. Another weird thing about Fauci and kind of the Wuhan lab thing. So the Wuhan Institute of Virology, their main thing that they do and why people think that it could be from the lab is because they research gain of function, which is basically they go out and look for viruses in different animals. The Wuhan Institute of Virology was looking for bat coronavirus, and they bring it in and take like human lung tissue and just try and infect it to see how that happens. They just see how it mutates and like how it jumps from just infecting bats to humans. Fauci's like the head guy for gain of function research.
Really?
Like, yeah, like worldwide. He's the gain of function guy. So it is kind of weird that a lab that he's been a part of funding is just, not getting investigated as much as it seems like it should have to me.
Yeah, it's a little scary. And I saw this thing. I hope I haven't talked about this on the podcast before, but I was watching the other day. He's been testifying before the Senate a lot.
A lot.
During the pandemic, after all of this, a lot. And Rand Paul was questioning him about it may not have been Rand Paul. I'm trying to remember. I think it was. And he was questioning Fauci about what was going on at the border and with coronavirus. And he asked Fauci specifically if they're following, and this is off topic, but if they're following COVID procedures at the border and if he would recommend the current guidelines at the border. And Fauci said no.
That's
This
weird.
is Biden's
That's bizarre.
top advisor for the NIH to the president on COVID, and he said no, they're not following COVID procedures. And it's like, for someone that has been so defensive about all of the COVID guidelines and procedures, some of which have been wrong, he's I shouldn't say Fauci because I don't think it's Fauci's fault. I think it's the administration's fault. But he's up there at the CDC. He's next to the director of the CDC right now, Fauci's the most powerful person at the CDC or the NIH, whatever it is. I think it's both.
Is he? I don't know if he's a part of either of those organizations.
CDC, I know he is. I don't
Really?
know about. I don't know.
Oh,
about
I thought he
NIH.
was just in charge of like the White House coronavirus task force.
Unless his role changed, because I know he may have been at the NIH this whole time. I know he was a part of one of those agencies all the way up until he became, this advisor to the president. But it just seems weird to me that that's not talked about enough. Talk about crisis at the border. Like, if this had happened under Trump, this is just as bad as the guidelines that are happening right now that are being ignored at the border are just as bad as the immigration policies that everyone complained about under Trump.
Well, it's worse, right? Because it's the immigration crisis that was happening under Trump, but worse than it's ever been, worse than it ever was under Trump. And we're dealing with a pandemic right now. Like, for you to not only have criticized Trump so heavily and then kind of turn a blind eye to this, but then to not follow COVID protocol at the border and not catch any flack for it is just, that's bizarre to me.
Yeah, it's weird to me too. I don't know. It's also weird to me that I saw this. Are you familiar with what was going on with the Russian? The Russians hacked something, and it was big news or something like that.
The pipeline, right?
Yeah,
The
it was that.
colonial
That's
pipeline.
exactly what it was. And Biden was asked about it. And first of all, he doesn't respond to any answers from the press. So we don't really know the administration's policy really, except when it's through different agencies and head of agencies and all that. We literally don't know. But he was asked about if the U.S. was going to take any retaliatory actions against Russia or Russians, for that matter, on what happened. And he said no. And that just seems really weird to me because depending on who you are, hacking into the infrastructure of another nation could be interpreted as an act of war. Yeah, it's like if the Russians hacked a U.S. satellite and shut off broadband coverage for T-Mobile customers in the United States, I would take that as an act of war. They hacked a pipeline in the U.S.
Yeah, and people were not able to get gas, right?
Yeah.
There were crazy gas lines
and people were saying that people in the administration were saying Putin had nothing to do with it. It's so what incentive did these Russians have? Obviously there's the financial incentive because this company literally had to pay the ransom. Pay the ransom.
Yeah.
And the administration took zero stance on it, on whether or not they should pay what I think it was $1 billion ransom. Is that how much it was?
I don't remember. I don't know if they disclosed it.
Some huge amount of money as a ransom to these hackers, and the administration refused to take a position on whether or not they should pay that. Zero guidance.
Yeah, that's not great.
So what happens when the next big cyber thing happens? What happens if like I said, in that scenario, a bunch of hackers hack a U.S. satellite that provides broadband coverage to the United States, and they say, okay, we want $5 billion. Should the company pay it? We don't know right now.
Yeah.
The administration hasn't taken a stance on whether or not that company should pay.
Didn't they just say it was a private sector issue?
Yeah, that's exactly what they said.
Yeah, that's kind of bizarre to me.
Literal infrastructure.
A U.S. company held the ransom, an infrastructure company held the ransom by Russian hackers, and you say, private sector thing, they can figure it out.
Or let's take it even further. What happens when they hack Texas's electrical grid? It's a private sector. It's a private business. Sure, they've received special permits and whatever from Texas state, but I mean, they could hack that and tell this company we want $3 billion to turn power back on. If you want the key to turning power back on, give us $3 billion. It's the same thing. Well, and the administration said this is a private sector issue.
And it's not a private sector issue because it's a foreign country, like, attacking U.S. citizens.
That's
like, how is that a private sector issue?
That's the same as saying it's like a civil issue.
That's the opposite of a private sector issue. Like, it's a foreign country. Like, yeah, I just don't get it. It's really weird to me.
Yeah, it's really weird to me too. It's going to keep getting worse. These cyber attacks are going to continue, and it's going to get I think it's going to get even crazier, dude. I think we're going to see widespread, massive cyber attacks on infrastructure across the world. And there's going to be some big companies hit.
Yeah, because there is no way companies can spend enough money on cybersecurity to, like, fight against a whole other country, right? Like, Russian hackers are not officially backed by the Russian government, but I guarantee if you went to the Russian government and said, hey, we're going to, like, attack U.S. infrastructure, they'd be like, okay, you've got our backing. I'm sure they do that, right? And that there's state-sponsored hackers from Russia or China or North Korea. And so, yeah, to say that it's just a private sector issue seems like to blatantly disregard what's happening and the ramifications of it. If this is successful, the ramifications of what could happen in the future.
Yeah, it's because they don't want to take responsibility. The administration didn't want to take responsibility for what happened and their lack of ability to respond, because they didn't have the ability to respond to what happened. And they blamed it on, they labeled it as a private sector issue so they wouldn't need to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, that's like the laziest cop-out response ever.
That's scary.
No criticism.
That's really scary.
Yeah, it's a bad deal for sure.
And it's not talked about enough. These types of things do not make mainstream news because they're not, I mean, they must not be interesting to a lot of people. They must not garner a lot of views, but attacking the infrastructure of the United States is a very bold move, and a lot of people would say it's an act of war. And
yeah,
if they're state-sponsored.
Yeah, the fact, because I mean, imagine the consequences, right, of like the gas, like pipeline being down, right? People can't get gas, like travel. It affects businesses. It affects like other travel. It just seems like something that you would want to figure out and not wait until you absolutely have to do something about it because it's gotten so big that it's really going to harm the country. But yeah, what about the alien report, the UFO report that came out?
It came out? I haven't even looked at it.
So I'll go over it. Basically, to summarize it, because it's a bunch of I don't even know if it's the official. It's people who had access to the report to the Senate that like spoke under condition of anonymity to like the New York Times. So it's just probably some senator that was like, hey, guess what they talked about? But they said that there is no evidence that the UFOs are aliens and that they just don't know what they are.
Really?
What a weird, because if you don't know what they are, there's no evidence that they're anything. So it's like, to just come out and say we don't know what they are. Because I think the official, and this could have been just paraphrasing from whatever the source said, but it was like, there's no evidence that they are aliens, but they can't say that they're not. So it's just like, you don't know anything.
Yeah, we don't know anything more than we already know.
Which is so weird. Like, how often is there just something going on that you just, don't know what's going on? And, especially the government to be like, yeah, we have no idea what's happening.
I mean, if it's not aliens, then someone's got some pretty advanced tech. Some pretty advanced tech.
Yeah, and it's just because if it was one specific event, I'd be like, okay, like it was like a weather balloon or something. But the fact that like dozens of soldiers have reported seeing the same thing, like I think with the like the Tic Tac video, the big one that got a lot of attention from like Commander Fravor, like an entire ship, everyone on the ship saw what those people were seeing, and all like confirmed they were seeing something. So it doesn't. It's weird. It's weird to think about.
Yikes. I mean, why is it's just weird. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. I don't buy that they shared everything, because those senators can't be trusted with knowing the innermost secrets of the tech of the United States, because
Right, because some of those senators are there for 6 years.
yeah, there's no shot.
There for 6 years and gone.
There are people in government who know a lot more, I think, about these things. And I mean, obviously, if another country has developed these sorts of technologies, then the United States definitely has those sorts of technologies, and senators definitely don't know about them. It's like doomsday technologies, right?
Yeah, that would explain the $1 trillion military budget. If we had like
Just ridiculous.
UFO class.
I think we do.
You do?
I think our tech is, I think it's that good.
But the thing is that stuff, like in those videos, is like laws of physics defying tech. It's not just like really good technology. It's like they're based on the laws of physics that we know that shouldn't be possible. So that's where I'm like, yeah, I don't think if it was just like a plane going really fast, like Mach 10, I'd be like, oh man, like maybe we figured it out and can go like 7,000 miles an hour. But when it's, I mean, dropped from 80,000 feet to 0 feet in under a second, that's pretty crazy.
I mean, they're not saying it's aliens.
But they're not saying it's not aliens.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think it's just, yeah, we don't know, which is weird.
That is weird to me. I do think we have technology that is way more advanced than what anyone can see, like anyone probably will ever see. But you're right, 80,000 feet to, I think it was like 2,000 feet or something.
Yeah, when you start breaking laws of physics, that's when I'm like, yeah, it probably isn't just government like spy technology.
That's crazy, dude. That's scary to think about. I heard, I saw I think it was to bring 2 pounds of dirt back from Mars. Super off topic. I think it was going to cost us like $500 million.
Yeah, it's...
What do you think do they know what the element is? What the rock is made out of?
On Mars?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is it?
It's just like rock. Like there's a lot of iron. That's why it's red.
Oh, so there's no new elements on Mars that we don't have on Earth?
No.
None.
Element?
Yeah. No other new elements on Mars that we don't have on Earth.
Because the only elements that they're like, the way elements work is it's like how many neutrons and electrons are in the atom, right?
What about on like Pluto or Mercury or Saturn? There's no new elements on those.
Doesn't matter. I mean,
that's not true.
But the way elements works.
Yeah, I know.
It's not
based. I know it's based on, there's like an elemental number based on the amount of neutrons or the amount of protons, whatever.
Yeah. So the way they get new elements is by like taking a particle collider and shooting two atoms at each other, and those atoms like combine when they're shot at like close to the speed of light and hit each other. They combine for like 8 microseconds and form a new element that is so unstable that it decays. It decays almost immediately. So there's not like they're not going to Mars and finding a new element. They could find, if they found signs that there was like liquid, or maybe probably not liquid, but water on Mars, that could be something they find, but they're not finding a new element. It's an attempt at finding, I don't know why
They're looking for, no, I heard they're looking for signs of life, signs of dinosaur bones. They're looking for insects or anything like that, a sign of organic life at some point on
like
Mars.
microbes. They're not looking for like dinosaur bones.
No, I think they are. I think they're legitimately looking for
dinosaur bones.
They want to look for dinosaur bones, is what I heard.
From where?
From Mars.
But where did you hear this? Because that, like, I don't think anyone is making the argument that there's like could be dinosaur bones on Mars.
No, I think that's like a legitimate thing. Like, hold on. I'll show you where I saw it. NASA looking for dinosaur bones on Mars.
I don't like, because I think best case scenario, if they found signs of life, it'd be signs of like microbes.
So this is I'm assuming this is where I saw it. It was an article just like this, but this is mars.nasa.gov. The title of the article is Souls 2836 to 2837, looking for quote unquote dinosaur bones.
Quote, so dinosaur bones is like signs of ancient life.
So here's what I've got. So I think that you're right. It's like there's actually almost no information on this article, but I think that's what they're looking for is like
microbes, like little, like maybe bacteria would be best case scenario. But yeah, they're probably looking for that. That'd be crazy if they found like signs that life had been on Mars at some point. That'd be weird to think about, but it wouldn't be, there's not enough time for like intelligent life on Mars to develop, I don't think.
How long?
Because we know what Mars was like the timeline of when, like, it would have had to develop almost in tandem with Earth. And I don't think there's much evidence that there was ever life.
In order for there to be,
like, because Earth and Mars are similar ages, right?
Yeah, but couldn't you have a species develop on another planet with, a conscious species?
Intelligent life?
Yeah, way quicker than Earth.
I don't think so.
Because it's all natural. It's all natural selection, right? You could have the process of natural selection take place way quicker than on Earth.
But it's, I don't think so. I think if they find signs of life on Mars, there's no way it was ever intelligent life. It would have been just like not even bacteria, like proto-bacteria, like the ancient ancestors of bacteria.
Even if they found proof of water on Mars.
Yeah. Because we don't even see any evidence on the surface of Mars that there's anything to support. It would be like the life that you find in like underwater, like right next to the ash clouds from underwater volcanoes. That's the only type of life there would be.
It'd still be crazy though.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. And I also think they're probably looking for evidence, like material that you could use to build stuff on Mars. So that you could ship, instead of having to take all the material to build stuff on Mars, you could use like stuff from the Martian surface to build your habitations or whatever. But who knows?
All right. CTS Podcast, episode 40. Should we wrap this one up?
Let's wrap this one up.
Okay.